by cuddling.
Incredible edible means to me a whole new way of living, a way of saying that we can share everything in this town as best we can.
Hi, I'm Pam Warhurst, and I work with a load of people who are trying to change the world. We're called Incredible Edible. Todmorden.
I really believe that this movement around food, and food as a symbol of our need to be more engaged, more resourceful, more pro-social, I really believe it's going to have a profound effect on the world. So I'm incredibly proud to be here today.
So Pam, I've been in Todmorden all day. It's fantastic. Take me back to the very beginnings of Incredible Edibles.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, 3 years ago, Tim Lang, I heard him speak on a stage where he told...
He's speaking here tonight.
He's speaking here tonight, yeah, it's really great. 3 years ago, he challenged us about the planet and the way we behave. And it was one of those moments that clicked. And I thought, OK, what are we going to do about that? And a bunch of us in Todmorden got together and we said, shall we wait for somebody else to do it for us? Or shall we see if we can think about local food and whether we can get the whole town excited about it and think about the way that they grow and what that means about their own environment. And that kind of was what it was about. It was about getting together around local food and taking some action, direct action.
Welcome to Incredible Edibles. What we're going to be doing today, I hope, is just looking at Incredible Edible from town bed to the big tent.
You know, for 3 years we've been doing what we've been doing. You all know that. You're all here. You're all doing your stuff, wherever it might be. This first conversation with me is around how we make this a movement.
And from quite early on, you've had this ambitious model of different types of action around food.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Well, it's just a matter of thinking about how a town works. And a town, you can cut a town up in any way, but really a town works around what its community is doing in its everyday life, what it's learning about in its schools and wherever, and where it's buying and what it's buying. That's all there is. We want to throw out a challenge, you know, to the people that can influence policy, that can influence investment decisions, that can influence how small businesses are funded. We want to throw out a challenge that says, we the people are showing you the way, what are you going to bring to this party? That's the point of tonight.
Why is it fantastic to be here today? Well, it's fantastic because you meet people and you go around this lovely town and you see what's been achieved in this project. It's out there on the Twitter sphere, it's being copied. There are people from all over the country, indeed from other countries here today, because they want to copy it. It's a really, really amazing thing.
You often hear community groups, when they come up against the bureaucracy of the public sector. Now, I've heard today that you've the British Waterways Board, the Canal Board, you turned them round, the health centre, you persuaded them to let you put the gardens around them, the schools. Yeah. How have you managed to open up the public sector like this?
I think there's a moment in history that we've grasped, if I could just put that as a context. I think people are looking for something new and they're concerned that the old ways don't seem to be quite delivering. I think we hear a lot of talk about community, but actually how a community itself can just grab the agenda is something you don't see an awful lot of. So when you see a community that's brave enough to put its money where its mouth is, and bold enough to just go out there and act and create propaganda gardens and go to the school and say, why don't we do things differently? And it actually gives you a huge platform on which to then go to the local authority or the health authority and say, we've done this, what about it? And you know, most people 9 times out of 10 say yes, they don't want to say no.
Here in the centre of Todmorden is one of Incredible Edibles' many different patches where members of the public can come and pick their own locally sourced food.
Mary's Garden. Mary, God, the best networker on this planet by a long shot. So what she actually did was took her garden, which was roses and flowers and stuff like that, took the wall down and planted it up with edibles. And I know I tell this story a lot, but for me, this is the essence of what this is all about. There's a family goes past this every day. They're going up to the estate, a mum and her kids. After about, I don't know, 18 months, because it takes 18 months at least for someone to pick from a garden that's not theirs, lest they get shot or something like that. But eventually it's starting to happen. We've kind of forgotten how to scrump and do stuff like that. But anyway, that's all right, it's coming back. So they started to pick various leaves and what have you, and they took it away. And then the kids brought the outside leaves and brought them back hours later and put them in the compost bin. And that was absolutely right on. Well done, kids, you're doing the right thing. And then the next day, on Mary's doorstep, a bowl of soup was left that was made from the veg that was picked from her garden from somebody who'd never met her in their life. And that is community. And that is what this can do. And it just happens.
We've got to be more pro-social. We've got to give back to society. We've got to recognise society won't be there unless we all make a contribution to it, that the whole of our lives rests on the strength of the society and communities that we're in. Now, if you have that analysis, if you think that the problem for the future is that we have got to change the ways in which we think and behave, that we need to be more engaged, we need to be more resourceful, and we need to be more pro-social, well, then you can see why Incredible Edible is a totally revolutionary project, because it's about all of those things.
And education is a really important part of it, so the schools in Tottenham are all involved in one way or another.
It's key, because at the end of the day, we're doing this so that a kid that's 8-year-old today, in 10 years' time, will have a different attitude towards the environment because they are surrounded with a knowledge and a love and be able to see edibles wherever they are. So schools are really, really key. And we've got a fantastic headmistress in our high school who really gets it.
Tottenham High School about 4 or 5 years ago wasn't a school that we could really have been proud of. We weren't getting the exam results we should have done, and it was fairly obvious that we needed to do something to make sure that the students really started to achieve and felt proud of their school. And it just happened that at the same time, lots of people in the community were feeling the same about Tottenham as a town. So whilst we were working in the school to make sure people were proud and feeling like they really wanted to and could achieve, people in the town were doing the same thing.
She talks to the school and says the school culture is a local food culture. Your future and how we grow things and the environment needs to be reflected in geography and maths and science and whatever it is. But they're also, besides teaching it, doing it. So in the yards, they're obviously planting up things and growing. They're keeping bees, they're keeping chickens. They're starting to understand what pollination's all about. But as well, they're being really brave. And we've created a business, a social enterprise, half school and half community, to grow fish sustainably. It's called aquaponics, with the water cleansed by watercress, feeding crops around it, in an orchard, so that those kids come to school through an edible landscape and have a different approach to the world around them. And that's all about teachers and parents getting on board with this.
I do feel very privileged actually to be the head teacher at this place at this time. It's a wonderful job to see students starting to feel committed to their environment.
So we're not just talking about day trips out of school or people coming in, we're talking about really going to the heart of learning.
Absolutely, because it was so obvious. Because the community was excited, we persuaded the local authority to use our school as a pilot for a BTEC in agriculture. Kids are coming through getting really excited in jobs that are going to be so important in the future that we've been ignoring. And the RSA with its fellows has come on board now and said, OK, where do those kids go to next? Because there's nothing there that's customised for them. So they're now working with that school to take them through that skills ladder. And on top of that, the community has created a market garden learning landscape itself on the outskirts of town. Nick, our grower, has created something where the kids themselves can learn how to make a job out of horticulture.
Okay, so we're at Incredible Edible Tod's Learning Centre. We've built this site to teach young people how to grow food, and the aim is to get them started off in small businesses up on the tops growing food. And the idea is that we find them a bit of land to experiment with and hope that that actually takes them into a viable commercial business. Kids come here and are absolutely made up that they're being asked to do stuff with those.
These are the Incredible Edible allotments. This is where they grow most of their produce.
Here in the Incredible Edible Polytunnel in Walsden, they grow a variety of different tomato plants. This one right here these are Italian cooking tomatoes. They are not quite ripe yet, but as soon as they are, they'll be used in restaurants across Todmorden.
So I actually too am here, a bit like Matthew, to salute Incredible Edible. And that I now turn and look at Matthew is where I think it is very important, very clever, typically Incredible Edible, that you've dragged Matthew up here, happily. Because it's people like him who need to spread the framework to allow this to develop more nationally and to grow and nurture the fabulous things that you've been experimenting with here.
But the revolution can't stop in Todmorden. No. So tell me about how this idea is spreading.
Well, it's really fantastic. We have been asked, and a number of us go all over the place, length and breadth of the country, and sometimes we go, mainland Europe as well. And we just tell them our story, that's all we do. All our proper gardens are in really central points so that people can have a conversation about it, to see what can grow in their locality, to again exchange ideas. But it's all food for sharing. It's all about learning and community. We worked fabulously with Pennine Housing. Val's here tonight, who is an absolute heroine when it comes to this work, because we were talking with a group of people, and Pennine Housing came up to us, could we be Incredible Pennine Housing? Well, that was music to our ears. Because what we want is to make this accessible to everybody, irrespective of age, income, culture. It doesn't matter. Food is for everybody, sharing is for everybody, opportunity is for everybody. And this is happening, Val is telling me tonight, the length and breadth of Calderdale. On our estates, people are learning new skills. They're growing for themselves. They're starting to relate to each other. It's the beginning of a revolution. And here's the health centre. And we noticed that around this brand new health centre, which is a £6 million health centre, it's a heck of a lot of prickly plants. And there's not a lot you can do with prickly plants. And now that health centre is full of apples and pears and strawberries and raspberries. It's got soft fruit. It's got an apothecary's garden at the back. Because we want to see orchards, fruit trees, nut trees, the length and breadth of these valleys. Why not? They used to be here. We could create, not only would it make it look more fabulous, but we start to create our own food and we reinvest in the next generation. And we've got the lost arts, jam making, pickling, bottling. All these things that we're going to need to do as a town if we're going to be able to feed ourselves better when things aren't growing.
There's a kind of notion that we have that you have to hope to act. And I think I've always believed that's the wrong way round. I think you have to act to hope. It's acting that gives you hope. And it's people in this town who, in the face of this massive global food crisis, didn't just think, well, we're going to get upset about it or we're going to sign a petition about it. They said, we are going to do something about it in our own backyard. And it's through action that you have hope. And it's because of that initiative that there are 20 other groups around the country here today, and that it will grow and grow and grow. And I really believe that this movement around food, and food as a symbol of our need to be more engaged, more resourceful, more pro-social, I really believe it's going to have a profound effect on the world. So I'm incredibly proud to be here today.
I'm really delighted. You know, people in the audience, they absolutely got it. And people were suggesting different ideas that we hadn't thought about, and we'll pick up and run. And what's even better is after, people are asking me how to get in contact with other people. So everything that we ever wanted about lighting that blue touch paper in people's eyes has happened. I'm delighted.
Look at it, it's brilliant.
I think what Pam said earlier about the fact that we don't do negative, she's absolutely right. You know, in the school we don't do negative, she doesn't do negative, and that's how you get things moving, isn't it?
It kind of feels like acknowledgement for being weird, doing something unusual and strange and a bit offbeat. Suddenly they're going, that's really good.
I'm more inspired to carry on and continue with what we've been doing and develop it even further.
I just want to say thank you so much. I hope we have a long and very fruitful relationship between Incredible Edibles and the RSA, and it'd be great to be able to explore that in the future. But a huge thanks to the RSA to help us make this possible. Thank you very much.